like that.
But you're right.
Switch to Geico. It's obviously a good idea.
Imagine what your child would feel on their first day of school if they knew what the teacher was teaching. Their self-confidence would soar. You can make that happen. But don't wait for their first day of school. Start their first day of life. Talk, read, and sing with them. Strengthen their brains and set them on a path to succeed. Talk, read, sing. It changes everything. Go to first5california.com to learn more.
Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France, of course. We love you in Canada and Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful May the 10th, 2021. Rondo Deportes. Bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Oh, Charlton, everything is getting exciting. All the NFL teams have tiptoed into minicamp, and they're getting their workouts in already early here in the spring. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, first responders. They tiptoe around and make sure everybody stay healthy.
Hopefully they're not tipping around the way the Cleveland Browns did back in the day. It's all fair and level war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars also all around the world. Just say Google or Alexa play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic. He'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon and Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. If you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Man, love pausing Big C, but I'll never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why should everybody care?
Well, Charlton, as we move closer and closer to the country opening up from COVID-19, we need to open up our minds and our hearts to our veterans that have served this country, Charlton. Unfortunately, we lose over 2,000 veterans a day to suicide.
Yeah.
COVID-19 has a vaccine. Suicide does not have a vaccine, Charlton. We need to pay more attention as American citizens to those people who have worked so hard to save our sovereignty in this nation. Find a way to give them conversations. Find out what's going on in their lives, what's troubling them. That will aid people a lot of times, Charlton, and steer them away from suicide.
Yeah.
We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton. But more Americans need to pay attention to the people in this country who are teetering on the edge.
Very well said. In fact, more people are, Big C. Even the NFL Hall of Famers are doing something about that. It's all fair and level war. Pick up the phone, call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And you can definitely get some help for our veterans and their loved ones. Also very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV, On Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the first place San Francisco Giants, and the Say Hey Kid, as well as the home run king Barry Bonds. When you reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. Sports teams are doing it. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. Most of our loans are underwritten by Rocket Mortgage, the #1 lender in the country on the wholesale side. Also, I want to say thank you to Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our sponsors from all over the world, and I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. My goodness, Big C. I don't believe it's summertime, but I think in Northern California, someone forgot to tell Mother Nature it's hot, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's hot and humid all over the place, Charlton. Woke up here with rain this morning, and it turned into humidity this afternoon. So all I could do was sweat.
Yeah, it's nothing wrong with sweat. I used to sweat to the great musician. His name was Keith Sweat, Big C. He used to always sweat to Keith Sweat, if that makes sense to you. I love that the album he put out way back in the day is All Fair and Level War. Speaking of sweating, Big C, they had to bring some college volleyball onto the scene down in Alabama. I guess it's called Gulf Shores, Alabama. I want to congratulate the University of Southern California women's as the 2021 College Beach Volleyball Champions. The bad news, Big C, they cannot find that white horse, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that white horse might be hanging out with Bob Bassett, Charlton. I mean, we got women's college volleyball going on down in Alabama.
Yeah.
They couldn't host it in California, so they had to bring it down south.
Yeah, they had to bring it down south. And wouldn't you know, they cannot find that white horse. They also went down south, Big C, and they had to get on with their I won't say crosstown rivals, but their LA rivals, Big C, the UCLA Bruins, and congratulations to the USC Trojans. The women's national champions won 3-1, and Gulf Shores, Alabama. That's a pretty neck of the woods when I was looking at the shoreline in Alabama. Most people don't think about Alabama having a pretty beach shoreline because oftentimes when they're down south, they only focus on states like Florida, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when you go down through the South, Charlton, when you think about those southern border states, they're right there in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
Beautiful sunny weather, Charlton, but they're also in Tornado Alley.
Yeah, in Tornado Alley. It's All Fair and Level War, Southern California, 2021 beach volleyball champions after defeating UCLA 3-1. USC did not give up more than one dual point in any of those matches, Big C. It's a shame they had to go down to the South and show the dominance of California volleyball. Also, rumor has it, not only did they get their feet stuck in the sand, a couple of people found some paper bags laying in the sand. Also, there's rumor that Alabama had some scouts out there seeing if they can recruit more California athletes. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, those California athletes are all trying to get down to Alabama, Charlton.
Yeah.
If you look at them coming down there trying to play volleyball down there to show that they're deserving of being in the state.
Yeah, they decided to go down south. It's All Fair and Level War. Hopefully we'll have more volleyball teams that can play in their own regions. But it's just like they do the college football. They have a selected place, and they'll go down and do it. Congratulations to the University of Southern California and also the runners-up, the UCLA Bruins. Big C. Also on the men's side, I want to say congratulations. The University of Hawaii, Aloha, Big C, they beat the BYU Cougars by the score of 3-0 to win their championship. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Rainbows had to really travel across some waterways, Charlton, to get down south. I mean, when you think about the University of Hawaii, man, I mean, what a gorgeous place to go to college at, Charlton, and play sports when you play at the University of Hawaii.
Yep.
And I know the guys are happy to get out of Provo up in the mountains of Utah, Charlton, just to see some sunshine and some heat.
Yeah. You know, first of all, somebody got it wrong. Why in the world? Hawaii is the number one seed. They swept the number 2 seed, BYU. It was 3-0 on Saturday to win the men's national volleyball championship. The Rainbow Warriors never lost a set during the NCAA tournament, and they finished the match hitting 381 Big C. By comparison, the Cougars managed only a 262 kill percentage. But if you think about how beautiful Hawaii is, wouldn't you think the Pro Bowl used to go over there, and now they're redoing their stadium, Big C. They can't do the Pro Bowl anymore. It's a kind of a disappointment that they don't play more college games on the island, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they do, Charlton. I mean, every university wants to go over there and play a game. You think about it as a college student, and you have a road game at the University of Hawaii, Charlton. I mean, you're going on vacation, whether it's, baseball, basketball, football, track and field, whatever, volleyball. I mean, what a gorgeous setting for a college athlete to be having in a backdrop to wake up with the Pacific Ocean in your face in the morning.
Yeah, I wonder why the NFL decided to do it in Orlando. Maybe they want to save some money on jet fuel, Big C. That make any sense to you, Big C? Your thoughts?
No. What happened, Charlton? Aloha Stadium is being condemned. It no longer fits the needs of the NFL as far as safety requirements because of the shifting lava plate that stadium was built on, Charlton. So that stadium actually is going to be demolished.
Yeah, it's a shame. In that same conference, the Mountain West Conference, a couple of years ago, UOP, they also played Hawaii quite often up in Stockton. They demolished Stag Football Stadium, seat about 32,000. They tore that down also because I guess they didn't want to put any money into the football program. Doesn't make any sense. But speaking of football program, there's a lot of good things going on around the world. Basketball, Big C, everybody's doing whatever they can to bring more interest into the world of sports. And we've seen a lot of good basketball, over the weekend, really over the year. And when you think about it, we just got out of the COVID bubble down in Orlando. Big C, we're about just a week and a half away from getting into the playoffs again. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it was a lot of stress put on the NBA bodies, Charlton, because of the short turnaround of the season. So you saw a copious amount of injuries this year, Charlton, a lot of players sitting out, taking extra time. And so I wonder how that's going to affect teams once the playoffs start.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be amazing for a lot of people that are going to figure that out, Big C. I want to take the time, got a lot of stuff to cover. It's been a great weekend, but I want to go over the Big C's NBA power rankings. We only got, what's that good old boy? He sang a song, you only got one shot. Can't remember. Eminem, he said, you only got one shot, Big C. The NBA players are coming down to about 1 week and a half before they can decide what happens. But I got a bone to pick with you, Big C. Kind of like that bone that I found in my soup one time when I was eating at a restaurant in San Francisco. The NBA basketball universe power rankings. The mainstream media. Pay attention, mainstream media. At one time, they said Gentleman Jerry Corey was better than Muhammad Ali. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, in boxing, I mean, it all depends on who you love. Yeah. Ali wasn't loved by everybody.
He was not loved by everybody, especially when he said he did not want to go across the seas and kill innocent people. Mainstream media, they've been stomping for Nikola Jokic, Big C. Even Rudy Giuliani's been stomping for him. The NBA players saw with their own two eyes the great Kevin Durant, what he just did to Nikola Jokic over the weekend, Big C. They saw with their own two eyes the great Rudy Gobert, what he did to him. And also they saw with their own two eyes what the great Anthony Davis from the LA Lakers did in dominating against the Joker. And when you could not get those foul calls, Big C, he wasn't as dominant as the mainstream media is saying Jerry Cooney is, or is that the Joker, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I don't think 3 games make a season or an MVP, Charlton. I mean, anybody can nitpick and scrutinize a 3-game series, because if that's the case, I mean, you got to take all the games that Kevin Durant has missed throughout the years and say, okay, he had a lot of reps. You can say that about Anthony Davis. I mean, no one was tooting Anthony Davis' horn when he came back and only scored 4 points the other night, Charlton. So, I mean, when you talk about players having a good night and not a great year, it's about consistency. That's what the MVP is about. It's not about taking a month off throughout the season and say, okay, I'm in the MVP chase, and you're not helping your team at all. Nikola Jokic doesn't take nights off. These other guys take nights off. He may not run up and down the floor and dunk all night long, but if you look at his statistics and compare it against either one of those guys that you just mentioned, whether it's Davis, whether it's Durant, any of these guys, Charlton, his numbers outweigh theirs.
Yeah, as long as he's not playing against them, he looks pretty good. Like the great Jackie Gleason in Smokey the Bandit. He told that sheriff, you sound a lot taller on the radio, but when they met him face to face, and I'm just wishing everybody nothing but the best. But with the eyeball test, I went to my optometrist not too long ago. They do all the COVID testing. They wipe down everything, Big C. And he asked me to do something. He said, Charlton, I want you to cover one eye, and I want you to look at that meter, that list, and tell me the lowest you can see as far as numbers and letters, Big C. And I got down to second from the lowest list. And then he had me cover that eye and do the other eye. He said, go down as far as you can on that list and tell me what you see with your own two eyes, Big C. I got down to the bottom, so my eyes don't have the same strength. And I'm saying the whole sports universe, these NBA players, the guys that don't care about mainstream, Big C, they knew that mainstream had said that Muhammad Ali was not better than Coney, Big C. At the same time, or Jerry Corey, at the same time, the NBA players are all saying they didn't see an MVP going up against Durant. They didn't see one going up against Davis. They didn't see one go up against anybody that's considered those top 3. That's just my opinion. If the mainstream want to crown them, they can crown them.
As you say, you're saying it's your opinion. You didn't say it was the NBA players' opinion.
Yeah,
but tell me, when Kevin Durant was sitting on the sideline and missing an entire month? Did that put him as an MVP caliber player? When Anthony Davis did the same thing, when he sat out for an entire month, did that make him an NBA caliber player, an all-star player, an MVP player? Those are the things you look at. When you talk about MVP, when you talk about most valuable player, you're talking about a player that's there every night that you can count on. Not a player that comes out every now and then and have a highlight night like Anthony Davis did, over the weekend against Phoenix.
Yeah.
What did he do 2 games prior to that when he goes out and scores 4 points? Did people look around and say, oh, him scoring 4 points, that makes him one of the top 5 players in the NBA?
I'm telling you what my eye doctor told me with my own 2 eyes.
But I'm asking that question.
Well, I'm
when
asking.
He scored 4 points. Does that make him a top 5 player in the NBA? When he gets shut down to just 4 points in a night. Jokic gets that in the first 4 minutes of the game.
Well, he came off an injury. If a guy's on the ICU bed, he's probably not going to be.
Here we go now. We got to find excuses. We can't just tell
the
actuality of the game. When you got to start making excuses for players, that means that they're not MVP.
Okay, so with your own, you've been to an optometrist, right, Big C, or no?
Periodically.
Okay, I suggest you go more often. And all I'm going to ask you to do, the guy didn't have a dog in the fight if my eyes were good or not. He didn't care. He's going to prescribe me what I need to see better. And I'm just asking what a lot of NBA players are talking about is when you saw him go up against Gobert and Davis and Durant, he did not look like the MVP. In fact, he was the 4th best player against those guys. But mainstream, maybe they got to you, Big C. Maybe they're telling you to believe what they tell you to believe as opposed to what you believe with your own 2 eyes. I want to take you to Utah in Big C's top 10 power rankings. The Jazz, Jazz goes good with red wine, Big C. You have that silver lining. And there's something about the Jazz. They have a good team, but I don't think they're going to be the Western Conference finalists. Big C, Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, and Bojan Bogdanovic, Big C. They respond. They play good basketball, but I don't think it's going to be enough to get over the top, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, if they're the best team in the West, what does it take for them to get over the top? This is what you're looking at. When you come in, you're saying it's the best team, and now you're doubting that they're the best team because their record indicates that they're the best team. I don't know what it would take for them to get over the top if that's not good enough being the best.
It's like my optometrist. The reason I went to him, I was referred to him because he has a good track record when you can go on and you can look at guys and see, who has a good rating. You get to talk to friends, etc. My insurance company paid for it. But there's something about seeing things with your own 2 eyes. Just like you can go to a restaurant. You taste things with your own tongue, Big C. And sometimes with your own 2 eyes if you don't have a good enough situation, Big C. But Philadelphia...
Well, I'm guessing because you can see with your own 2 eyes that you were able to read the record.
Yeah.
And the record told you that they were the best team in the West.
Yeah.
Otherwise, your eyes were lying to you.
Well, the record also told me that your friends, the Denver Nuggets, have a better record than the LA Lakers. But that's about with your own 2 eyes. Also with your own 2 eyes. There was a song called In Your Eyes. I don't know who sang it, but it was a good song back in the day. Philadelphia 76ers, them good old boys, they've all but clinched the top seed in the Eastern Conference. If you go back to our first NBA preview, I had Philadelphia being in the NBA Finals against the LA Lakers, and it's going to be at least close to it. I don't know, I can't guarantee it, but they're going to be close to it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Philadelphia has to stay healthy. They haven't proven that they can go down a stretch and stay healthy for 2 weeks in a row, Charlton. That's been their biggest problem.
Yeah.
Embiid, every time you turn around, he's limping out of the lineup. Ben Simmons has been doing the same thing also. So it's about health when it gets to the playoffs.
Yes, that's where you're not wrong, my friend. Not so fast, my friend. It's about who gets the calls. Think about that. Keep that in mind. It's about who gets the calls, not how healthy you are, Big C. The Phoenix Suns, they had a come to Jesus moment over the weekend. We'll talk about them later, but you still think about they're having a push for the number 1 seed, Big C, in the Western Conference. And it's hot in California. It's been so hot, even the Phoenix Suns look a little bit cooled off. But the great Chris Paul, he continues to do the point guard work that a lot of people knew he is who we thought he was, Big C. Your thoughts?
Weren't they just the best team in the West a week ago, Charlton, and now they've slipped?
Yeah, they met a new man in town. They got cooled off in the lake, Big C. You can't go put the sun in the lake. Hopefully the sun doesn't ever come in contact with the lake. It's all fair and level war. But then I want to take you to your team that you picked to be the Eastern Conference champions. I think you even said they'd be the NBA champions. And they might be. If you want to crown them, they told the Joker in Denver, in his own backyard, the Brooklyn Nets, James Harden hasn't played since April the 5th, Big C, because of hamstring. But he remains to be very confident he'll return before the postseason. All I saw was you got a guy by the name of Kevin Durant that the Joker couldn't stop, and Kyrie Irving. They went into Utah, and they didn't take that what they call that friendly cigar they give them when they go to Utah, Big C, and it went up in smoke. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, there was a couple of games ago when Kyrie Irving broke out, I believe, for like 47 points, and the Nets got thumped. So, I mean, it's about being consistent over a 7-game series when it gets to the playoffs.
Yeah, it really is.
When you're playing games right now, teams are already suited where they're going to be in the playoffs. And I don't know if all the teams in the top 10 are playing as hard as they should. When you see some teams playing better than others, teams are just trying to make sure that they don't get injured going into the playoffs.
Yeah, they're trying to avoid that injury bug. Big C, Milwaukee Bucks, they're doing that thing, 5 straight wins. Milwaukee in a position to claim the 2nd seed in the East, presuming that it can keep pace with Brooklyn. And remember, they played 3 times. They got a 2-1 series split with Brooklyn, so they still have the nod over Brooklyn if they get there, Big C. Your thoughts?
And they dominated Brooklyn the last time they played. I believe they drove them, and then you had Durant and Kyrie Irving between them scoring over 70 points, but that wasn't enough to beat Milwaukee.
No, it wasn't enough, Big C. And then your favorite team, for some reason, the Denver Nuggets. Denver stumbled as of late. In fact, you call, as well as mainstream media, you call this guy the reigning or presumptive MVP. They've stumbled of late, Big C, losing 3 of his past 4 games. And again, I told you who they went up against. They went up against the Lakers in the great Anthony Davis, the Jazz, Rudy Gobert, and then you have Kevin Durant with the Nets. And it's amazing how he came back down to earth, Big C. He's a leading NBA candidate by mainstream, but I think gentleman Jerry Corey was supposed to beat Muhammad Ali by mainstream, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he's going to win the NBA MVP. The Lakers, I believe, have lost 7 of their last 10 games, and no one's counting them out if it comes down to that. So that means that they've lost more games as of late than the Denver Nuggets have. I mean, just because you lose a few games later on in the season, Charlton, because you've already solidified your playoff position, and that's the most important thing to you as an organization.
Yeah.
And to get some younger players some playing time down the stretch that you may need in an emergency situation in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's all fair and love and war. Some people are saying the same thing about King James, that they're saving him for the playoffs. It's all fair and love and war. The Clippers, they had a nice thing going, but they had some guys from, sometimes New York can be very rude. You got to have thick skin when you go to New York. When New York came out to L.A., the Clippers are getting closer to full screen, and that's a good thing, but they're not close to playing the great basketball that a lot of people thought they would. The great Kawhi Leonard, sometimes he's kind of stuck in a little bit of having a hitch in his giddy-up. Serge Ibaka could finally be nearing a great return. But when I think about this team, it feels like Tyrone's biggest goal is to just get everybody on the same page, Big C. Your thoughts?
But see, you can't cover for teams when they're getting beat. If you get beat, you get beat. That's the bottom line. It's not just Denver that loses games. I mean, the Clippers got their butt kicked by the New York Nets. And they had to drive all the way across the country, Charlton. So, I mean, everything in L.A. is not golden.
Yeah, I heard they did make them drive, Big C. They didn't have enough money for jet fuel coming out of New York, Big C. It's all fair and level war. But their win against the Clippers on Sunday, Staples Center, it allowed the Knicks to remain in 4th place in the East by themselves. They're 1 game ahead of the Hawks and the Heat. They continue to defy what a lot of skeptics said they would be, Big C. Your thoughts?
I don't think that they're defying what skeptics said they would be, Charlton. I mean, you got to look at these NBA players, and they're confident in themselves. I mean, as fans, you're going to root for certain people.
Yeah.
And you've proven that time and time again that you come to the show with pom-poms and a skirt on. But, the players are out there playing the game. And that's where it's decided that regardless of what any of us want to say in the media realm, it's up to the players to decide what's going to happen on the floor.
Yeah, pom-poms and skirts are great because I'm pro-women having the chance to wear pom-poms and skirts, Big C. Also, when you're
I'm all about gender equity, Charlton.
Yeah. Just make sure you let women know you're all about gender equity, Big C. Pom-poms and skirts are all great. Dallas Mavericks coming in at number 9. The Kristaps Porzingis, he's missed the past 6 games due to soreness in his surgically repaired right knee, and some people say he's trying to rest up for a potential playoff run, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he's always had a problem in the latter part of the season throughout his NBA career, Charlton, and this is the proper thing that Dallas gets him ready for the playoffs. They're not going to win the West, so get him ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, Tim Hardaway Jr. averaging 27 points and shooting 52% from three. And then you have the Portland Trailblazers, the Dollar Dame. Portland's quietly won 7 of its past 8 contests. That's within the stretch. The Dollar Dame is averaging 34 points a game on 52% shooting. But something about Dollar Dame, on a cold night where he's not going to drive the basket and pass it, that may catch up to him also, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Portland is always a first or second round out in the playoffs. You never expect much from them.
Yeah, you never really do, even though they're paid like you should. And I'm going to go one over, and that's the LA Lakers. They are a team that they just haven't been healthy. And that's scary for the rest of the league because who the best player is in the universe, it's not the Joker, even though they may say gentleman Jerry Curry was better than Muhammad Ali. They may say Jokic is better than all the guys that just put him down in the last couple of games. Anthony Davis, he looked like he was whooped to still Chamberlain, Big C. He looked better than he's looked all season. He had that right leg injury, so I understand that sometimes players are timid. LA's lost a lot of close games. They lost a close game to Portland. They even lost a game to Sacramento. How could you explain that? But their dominating win over the Phoenix Suns shows there's a new kid in town, and they don't even have LeBron James and Schroeder back yet. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that was one game, Charlton. That one game does not make a season, and I like Anthony Davis to the 10th man from the Wizard of Oz. You can't count on it.
Yeah, well, it's all fair level war. You know, Dorothy can go to the Wizard and get a lot of things that Anthony Davis. All he needed was to drink some of that Moor's blood from Northern Africa that Russell Westbrook has found. He gave him some more blood, Big C, and now he's been playing like the Lions. That makes sense to him. Before we come up on the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout, I really like what's going on in NBA basketball. I know some people don't like it that we have these play-in games, but Big C, without these play-in games, there would be fewer cities that are even focused on what's going on in the world of the NBA. Did they get your? Would you like to have more of the play-in games, or would you want it to be like a one and done? Big C, your thoughts?
But what does the play-in games mean when you don't have fans in the stands? So it's not like you're gaining interest from cities. You're just playing more games that'll potentially get a player hurt. Yeah,
it's all fair and level war. You can't be afraid of being hurt if you're going to play in the NBA or drive a car. It's all fair and level war. I do want to bring up, everybody's pulling for science and pulling for a great referee. They get yelled at all the time like nobody really appreciates them. But veteran referee Tony Brown, who's worked his first NBA Finals last season, has been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, is going to miss the rest of the season. The NBA announced that today, Big C. He's undergone some treatment since his diagnosis last month. He's only 54 years old, has officiated 1,109 regular season games, 35 playoff games, a 2018 All-Star game in Los Angeles, and has 19 seasons as an NBA official. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's very unfortunate. When you think about the referees in professional sports, they don't have home games. They don't have a home team. And so they're always being jeered at by the fans in the stands and disagreed with. But this is one of those situations, Charlton, where everybody's pulling for the same team right there, the officials in the NBA.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we hope all the best for him in his treatment and his recovery, Charlton. And this is a horrific thing for anybody here, the big C word, cancer.
Yeah, and we hope that they have, the great thing, if there is a great thing, is that he had the chance to get some treatment. There's a lot of men, they don't even go to the doctor until it's too late. So I just applaud all men and women, get your checkups, get your treatments. Even if you don't have insurance, they can take you in at a general hospital and figure out how they can best help you. And so I'm glad that he was keeping his appointments like a lot of men should do. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the NBA and some other things happening in the sports universe. In the words of the great Arnold Schwarzenegger, we'll be back. All right, we're back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps that you can follow Big C Sports, and I really do appreciate the growth of Big C Sports. I also want to say thank you to Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said in Genesis, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see our apps pop up all over the world. And I really do appreciate the growth we're having with Big C Sports. Big C, the great Jimmy Butler, they should do a movie about Jimmy Butler, the great Spike Lee should. The way he grew up and had some challenges in life, everybody goes through something. He dropped 26 points, had 11 assists to help the Miami Heat. They held off the Boston Celtics, Big C. It was 131-24 on Sunday as the team fight for position in the tightening Eastern Conference playoff race. The great Duncan Robinson dropped 22 points, and Bam Adebayo, Big C, he finished with 20 for Miami, which increased his lead over Boston in 2 games for sixth place in the standing. The Heat are 37-31 and now have the same record as fifth place Atlanta, but the Hawks own the head-to-head tiebreaker, and also the little bit of bad luck out of Boston also, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is a position that Miami likes to be in. They were in this position last year down in the bubble, Charlton, when they made that miraculous run to the NBA Finals. And this is a team that this time of the year is when they're the most dangerous. So be worried about the Heat turning it up.
Yeah, the Heat turning it up. And then you have Jaylen Brown. He's out for the season. You know, I know we talk about players show more toughness. People say Anthony Davis should show more toughness. LeBron James should show more toughness. They always say that Porzingis show more toughness. But you got guys that they are one injury away, whether they're tough or not, from having their season come to a conclusion. And I really wish him the best, Big C, that he's going to be out for the rest of the season. How does that hurt Boston, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is what I've been telling you, is that players are trying to get prepared for the playoffs, and they're not so worried about this latter part of the season, pushing it hard down the stretch. It's going to be a big deficit for Boston, Charlton, losing one of their top 3 scorers.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Jaylen Brown is a guy who can make that offense pump, Charlton, and he was a great wing player for the Celtics, and now they got to find somebody to pick up that double-digit scoring.
Yep, they really have to, Big C. Hopefully, I heard Larry Bird was out seen shooting threes, Big C, just trying to get warmed up. He doesn't have a good he has to be a half-court offensive star this time. It's all fair and level war, Big C. The great Derrick Rose, former MVP of the league, dropping 25 points off the bench. The great Reggie Bullock dropped 24 in the New York Knicks. They beat the Los Angeles Clippers. It was 106-100. On Sunday, they snapped an 8-game skid at Staples Center, Big C. The great Bullock made 5 3-pointers against his former team, and R.J. Barrett had 4 on his way to 18 points. The Clippers are the best NBA 3-point shooting squad, Big C, but they were just 12 of 35. At what point in time do you decide to drive the basket, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they weren't that great against the Knicks. The Knicks knew how to defend the arc out there, Charlton, and coming out west, getting a much-needed victory to solidify that playoff positioning for them. Yep. This is good cooking for the Knicks.
Good cooking for the Knicks. They didn't get clipped. The Knickerbockers didn't have their pants clipped by the Los Angeles Clippers. It's all fair and level war. The great Luka Doncic, Big C, when he's not complaining, he does complain a lot, but the belt swipe to Colin Sexton earned him an ejection. It didn't slow down the Dallas Mavericks. The great Tim Hardaway Jr. dropped 25 points, Big C, and when you think about it, Josh Richardson, he poured in 20 points, allowing playoff-bound Dallas to overcome the loss of Doncic early in the third quarter and roll to a 124-97 victory over the Cleveland Cavaliers on Sunday night. Yeah, Doncic complains, but based on what he did to Colin Sexton, don't ever complain again, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think that might have helped Dallas, down the stretch when you think about it. Doncic not being in the lineup, and the rest of the players, Charlton, showing that they can score without him. Porzingis out, their top 2 players, Charlton, and they can go out and get a 30-point win against the Cavaliers.
Yeah, they got a big win against the Cavaliers. It's all fair and love and war, but no more complaining with that kind of shenanigans, if that makes any sense to you, Big C. The great Anthony Davis. It's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's Anthony Davis. He been drinking that lion's blood, Big C. He could have had it with the Big C burger. It's a tasty burger, and it comes with exotic meats. And he had an exotic game. The great Anthony Davis dropped 42 points, had 12 rebounds as a Lake Show, never troughed in a 123-110 win over the Phoenix Suns on Sunday night. The great Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Alex Caruso dropped 17 points each. And the shorthanded Los Angeles Lakers won for the 3rd time in their past 11 games without King James and Shooter, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, maybe the Phoenix Suns are not as good as what you thought they were. You know, you got the 10-man going out there shutting them down in the desert. So, I mean, maybe the Suns are going to have something to worry about in the second round, where they'll most likely be facing the Lakers, and one of those teams will be gone from the West.
Yeah, it's always about officials, Big C, and who gets the call that the officials will decide are going to get the call. That's just my opinion. I love this time of year. Especially, you know, I'm just sad when we got a player injured. Of course, that happens in life. Football players get hurt all the time, and they play right through it. Sometimes they don't even tell anybody that they get hurt. They just keep playing. I want to touch off on tonight's Monday. It is May the 10th. The NBA schedule, not a big one, Big C. You have Indiana at Cleveland. Oh, my goodness. The great Russell Westbrook watching Oscar Robertson. If they get that done tonight at Atlanta, Big C. At Atlanta, give me your thoughts on Russell Westbrook. Will the Birds get clipped down in Atlanta as he tries to beat the Big O's record, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if they're going to be able to beat the Birds tonight, Charlton. Bradley Beal's out of the lineup, so Russell Westbrook running solo. He may eclipse Oscar's record, but I don't think that they'll beat the Hawks.
Do you feel that Russell Westbrook, I mean, there's some things called must-see TV. When Ali Fight was on, it was must-see TV, Big C. When Barry Bonds was up at the plate, it was must-see TV. A lot of people have that must-see TV when Steph Curry's playing as must-see TV. Do you feel that Russell Westbrook, because there's no championship yet, is he not given the media attention that maybe even Zion Williamson was getting, Big C? Your thoughts?
He gets more media attention than what you give him credit for, Charlton. I mean, everybody's aware of what Russell Westbrook does on a night-by-night basis. Even the rest of the NBA players, Charlton. It's just he's not, you know, the Washington team is not a marketable team when it comes to television.
Yeah, he's doing his thing. I really wish him the best for tying the Big O and now maybe breaking the Big O's record. Records are meant to be broken, and there's something about this player out of the great UCLA program in Southern California, and records are meant to be broken, and I hope that he can do it. I know the great Bradley Beal went for 50, I think, the other night, but then you still have the great Russell Westbrook that got all the information in the papers because of chasing a record that hasn't been broken 46 years ago. The great Oscar Robertson record stands in place. It's all fair and level war. New Orleans at Memphis, Milwaukee at San Antonio, Utah at Golden State, and Houston at Portland, and it should be a great night of NBA basketball, even though it's a small schedule. Big C, your thoughts?
I mean, the NBA is running down the crunch line, Charlton, getting for playoff seeding. And that's what's important to the players right now.
Yeah, it's important to the players right now. We wish them all nothing but the best. I want to touch a little bit on Major League Baseball. The pitch hit deep. Right field, back to the wall, home run. I love the home run hit. And they say that girls love the deep balls and men love hitting the deep balls. It's all fair and love and war in Major League Baseball. When you think about it, Big C, Wade Miley, he pitched the baseball's second no-hitter in 3 days. They get them like every other day now, Big C. And fourth already this season, leading the Cincinnati Reds to a 3-0 victory Friday over the Cleveland Indians, who were no-hit for the second time in a month. Miley is 4-2 on this season, Big C. He relied on breaking pitches and his experience of 11-plus Major League seasons to baffle the Indian squad, Big C. The batters couldn't find him. And then throw Cincinnati's first no-hitter since Homer Bailey did it in 2013, Big C. Your thoughts?
I mean, baseball has been phenomenal from the mound this year, but I wonder what Rob Manfred is thinking, Charlton, since we've had so many no-hitters here in this early part of the season, and even the one from Bumgarner that they did not count, Charlton, out there in Arizona,
That's right.
You know, as far as a perfect game. So, I mean, I know he's got to be stressing about getting this mound moved back, Charlton, another foot, you know, to help out the batters, because maybe baseball needs to think, when they're teaching these young kids how to swing, not to swing so much for the fences, but to make contact and put the ball in play more.
Very well said, Big C, but they showcase the home run, and that's why people swing for the fences. Kind of like the three-point shot is all fair and level war. But when you think about it, with Wade Miley no-hitter, with John Means throwing one on Wednesday, Big C, this is the first time that there were two Major League Baseball no-hitters pitched this close to each other since Dave Stewart, the great Dave Stewart that did his thing in baseball, Big C, and also Fernando Valenzuela pitched one on, I think it was the same night. It was June 29th, I believe. That was back in 1990, Big C. Your thoughts?
Long time ago, Charlton, out there on the West Coast between the A's and the Dodgers, Charlton, where those no-hitters were thrown.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love baseball, and a lot of people are doing the best they can to get in some good baseball, and pitchers You know, if this were happening for more home runs than we've normally seen, they would maybe say the ball is juice. How come we don't get that when baseball are getting those hitters, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, no, like I said, it comes down to players not taking the time, Charlton, to put the ball in play.
Yeah.
Everybody's swinging for the fence. You got these long-driven fly ball outs, Charlton, that don't count for anything. They may look good coming off the bat, but they don't produce runs. And that's what baseball has gotten away from. There used to be a time in baseball, Charlton, when you generated runs. There was a theory that you generate runs. And now, everybody's wanting to hit the long ball and is getting pitches with these great statistical numbers.
Yeah, they say the girls go crazy about a sharp-dressed man and a man who can hit the long balls. All fair and level war tonight, scheduled Monday, May 10th. Cincinnati at Pittsburgh, Big C, Boston at the Baltimore Orioles. The Los Angeles Angels at Anaheim at Houston. And you have the Miami Marlins at Arizona. You have the Texas at San Francisco right now in first place. San Diego is at the Colorado Rockies. Last I checked, Big C, I've seen alligators walking around the golf courses in Florida. So they decided to leave Florida and bring that marlin into the desert. Who would win between a marlin and a rattlesnake, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, he might put that rattlesnake on a spear and hold him out on open fire.
Yeah, it's all fair level. I've seen these Blue Jays in my backyard, and they've been going up, beating up this squirrel. I don't know what that squirrel did to make him so mad, but they've been beating him up, Big C. And speaking of maybe making people mad and finding a reason to be upset at somebody, I think about racing. The great Bob Baffert said, I'm surprised my horse won. He had half the races of the horse on the hill, Big C. Kentucky Derby winner. You would think he's from Texas. They say if you're not cheating, you're not trying in Texas. Medina Spirit, Big C, headed to Baltimore for the Preakness Stakes while trainer, the great Bob Baffert, your friend, Big C, said that he won't attend the race to avoid being a distraction in the wake of a lot of scrutiny since the colts failed the post-race drug test. Now, Baffert is also appealing the positive test, not his first appeal, and part of the original sample will be retested. If the violation is upheld, Big C, Medina Spirit could be disqualified, and the runner-up, Mandalone, elevated to the winner, as well as people who lost money by betting on the horse that maybe won but wasn't filled up with drugs, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is what happens when you hang out with that USC horse like Bob Baffert. Got his name right here. But Bob Baffert is guilty, Charlton. I mean, this is the fifth time in the last 12 months that Bob Baffert has had a horse test positive.
Yeah.
He needs to be disqualified. He needs to be banned from the circuit for some time, Charlton. He needs a stiff penalty. Not only that, in the last decade, Bob Baffert has been caught over 30 times doping horses, Charlton, that have failed drug tests. And Bob Baffert keeps coming up with an excuse. That's why he has a good attorney. Is that, the positive test came up from people touching on the horse, petting the horse. They drew the blood out of the horse. It wasn't a horse's sweat that they tested. So Bob Baffert has been full of lies, and he doped up this horse to get another Kentucky Derby
allegedly
win. And I think that Bob Baffert needs some serious restrictions put on him by the Horse Racing Association.
Yeah. Hey, Big C, what would happen if a baseball player hit home run after home run, and if they went to that baseball player and he actually tested positive for the substance? Do you think they would allow him to keep playing the game, or would he face a major suspension, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, one test positive in baseball and they give you a suspension. I mean, we see half a season suspension in baseball. We've seen full season suspensions in baseball. Bob Baffert has had horses tested positive 5 times in the last 12 months. 5 times. This is not anything new with Bob Baffert, and everybody in the horse racing industry knows that Bob Baffert has been playing dirty, but he'll do anything to keep his name up on top of the winning circle, Charlton, and rake in those huge purses.
Yeah, and they say guilty men don't hide, and guilty men don't run.
Well, the thing that I'm curious about is why in the hell he doesn't want to go to the race, Charlton. Then he's going to be a distraction. It's been a long time since I've seen a man out there running around the track against the horses, so how the hell is he going to be a distraction?
Maybe he has to make sure the rest of his horses don't eat drugs. It's all fair in club and war. I wish the horses nothing but the best, Big C. All fair level. NHL, the Oilers, Connor McDavid achieved 100 points for the season, Big C. McDavid scored a goal, 4 shots, dashed 3 assists in Saturday's 4-3 win over the Canucks. McDavid opened the scoring just 45 seconds into the game, Big C, And he did it without Bob Baffert's help, if that makes sense to you, Big C, your thoughts?
I mean, when you think about this season that Connor McDavid has had, Charlton, just 53 games to reach the total 100 total points on the season, Charlton.
Yeah.
We often remember the great one who played in Edmonton, Wayne Gretzky.
Yep.
And he has eclipsed many of Wayne Gretzky's records in that same city, Charlton. Connor McDavid is the most dominant player in the NHL, Charlton. Just, it's a shame that the Edmonton Oilers have not been able to win a Stanley Cup with him there yet.
Yeah, it's amazing, Big C. He then assisted on one goal by Jesse Fogarty, Big C, and 2 power play assists from, it was actually tallies from Leon Draisaitl, and a 4-point night that output gave McDavid the century mark in just 53 appearances this season with 32 goals, 68 helpers, 192 shots on the net, Big C. And think about that, Good Boy is really doing his thing. He's 24 years old. He posted 36 points in the last 14 games to finish the regular season in fantastic form, Big C. Your thoughts?
No, I mean, he's exciting to see. And I mean, not enough people talk to watch hockey, but if you ever want to see the glamour of sports and the grace of an athlete, watch hockey. And, I mean, you got to see it on the big screen. It's perfect when you see it live. Yeah. Because, I mean, there's nothing, you can't experience anything like being at a live hockey game when you talk about constant movement, speed, and excitement.
Yeah, constant move, speed, and excitement. There's a few more things I can think of. The late Burt Reynolds thought about things that were more exciting than hockey. He only took his hat off for one thing. He told the great Sally Fields, Big C, it's all fair and level more. I want to talk about a sport where you got to keep your helmet on. Unless Lyle Alzado would pull it off for you, Big C. NFL ranking the worst 9 decisions of the 2021 NFL offseason, Big C. Everybody has their own opinion. But I want to get your thoughts on a few things, and I wish everybody nothing but the best. Now that the draft is over, we can include it in projecting the worst moves of the offseason to this point. At about this time last year, the worst moves were not too difficult, and some people say they were too difficult to figure out. The Chicago Bears had traded for the great touchdown Nick Foles. The Houston Texans had dealt the great DeAndre Hopkins, and Green Bay drafted Jordan Love, Big C. This year, the list is highlighted by odd trades, and some of the question, not like Bob Baffert, Big C, but some teams' directions and moves that have put franchises' caps in danger or saw them at least sacrifice too many assets for the expected return. We're going to look at the 9 worst moves primarily by the projected long-term damage. Irrespective of what mainstream says, I want to get Big C's thoughts. Number 9, Big C. The Jaguars invest in Shaquille Griffin. The Jaguars, think about it, appeared to make a smart move by going after one of free agency's big-name cornerbacks and giving Shaquille Griffin $40 million over 3 years, Big C, despite playing a premium position throughout Griffin's comeback with the risk in taking him. I think he's a solid veteran, but they have a veteran's leading the charge is a tough sell after seeing that Seattle secondary struggle so badly in 2020, Big C. Your thoughts?
I mean, they couldn't catch any of those fish they were tossing out there in the Seattle fish market. But you think about this has to be a dumb move when you look at the Jacksonville franchise. This is a franchise that gave up Jalen Ramsey just 2 short years ago to the Los Angeles Rams, Charlton. And for the money he was asking, Charlton, you gave him away. And now you go out and get Griffin, who was constantly getting torched out there in Seattle in the rain. Yeah,
out there in the rain. Maybe it won't be as rainy in Jacksonville, but it is muggy and humidity. But, yeah, I don't understand why you send Jalen Ramsey and bring in another guy that had a suspect defensive secondary in Seattle, basically. Number 8, Tennessee Titans. They picked for Bud Dupree, former Pittsburgh Steelers franchise player, the great Bud Dupree, who notched a 5-year. It was a deal worth $82,500,000 and received the second most cash given to any player this offseason. While Dupree had 19.5 sacks over the last 2 campaigns, he had no more than 6 in each of his previous 4 seasons, Big C. His recent success felt a little bit like it was fool's gold, in my opinion, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I think he's the benefactor of playing on the opposite of T.J. Watt in Pittsburgh, Charlton. You talk about one of the more up-and-coming young defensive ends in the NFL, that's T.J. Watt. He's going to force a lot into you, and that's what Bud Dupree was the benefactor of. So if Bud Dupree can get $84 million, I hate to be on the negotiating end with T.J. Watt next year as his contract.
It's only $84 million, Big C. It's all fair and level war. When you think about the Giants, the New York Giants, the Giants gamble on Kenny Galladay. The Giants just didn't gamble on Galladay, Big C. They gave him $72 million over 4 years. The second highest salary among free agents, and the team's annual value, and more players are like outside linebacker Shaquille Barrett and center Corey Lindsey. Now, the desire to get third-year quarterback Daniel Jones better weapons, that's admirable, Big C. But Galladay, when you think about it, he only suited up for 5 games last year because of injuries and had one of the stranger trips in free agency amid a weaker market for his position. Granted, he's 27 years old. He had 11 touchdowns in 2019. But give me your thoughts on that, Big C, your thoughts.
You know, I got to figure out what Dave Gettleman has spoken up there in New York, Charlton. I mean, he's made questionable moves over the last couple of years with the Giants, from the draft to free agency and trades. Not only that, do you sign Galladay, Charlton, but then you go out and you draft a receiver in the first round. You sign 2 other receivers in free agency. So now you don't have enough positions to play receiver in, Charlton, for Daniel Jones to throw to.
Yeah.
So you got an overstaffed roster at one position, and you didn't go out and get any offensive linemen.
Yeah, but he does know the great Bob Baffert, Big C. It's all fair in love and war. Number 6, the LA Rams. They extended Leonard Floyd, Big C. The Rams coughed up $64 million over 4 years on an extension for Leonard Floyd, which in total dollars, it would have given him the 6th largest contract in this year's class. And while Ford, he did record 10.5 sacks last season, that was an anomaly considering he had just 4.5 or fewer in 3 of his prior 4 years with Chicago, Big C. Your thoughts?
I mean, that's one of the reasons why the Bears let him go after Khalil Mack showed up. But it shows what happens when he plays opposite of a great defensive player, Charlton. He had Khalil Mack in Chicago. He had Aaron Donald in Los Angeles. Can he duplicate that feat this year? I don't think so.
Yeah, not so fast, my friend. I mean, sometimes they hang out with guys that say, yeah, man, that's a good deal. But you shouldn't sign guys when you're drinking scotch. It's all fair and love and war. Number 5, the Cincinnati Bengals. They pay up for Trey Hendrickson. The Bengals once again surprised, being one of the biggest spenders in free agency this year. They highlighted by the 4-year, $60 million deal they gave former New Orleans Saints pass rusher Trey Hendrickson, Big C. This average annual salary of $15 million, would you believe it ranks 6th among free agent contracts this offseason? And it comes with a red flag, Big C. Hendrickson's kind of a one-hit wonder. He had 13.5 sacks last year, but one could argue it was a product of playing around guys like Cameron Jordan on a career-high 53% of the defensive snaps. Prior to last season, the most sacks he had recorded in one season, Big C, it was 4.5, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he benefited because Dunlap was hurt, and he got a chance to play opposite of Cam Jordan, Charlton. And when you think about those sacks, Charlton, he got, I think, 12 of those sacks in the first 10 games of the season. So he went on a dry spell in the latter part of the season, Charlton, and you can see that with the Saints in the playoffs.
Yeah, you can see it with the Saints. And a lot of focus was on Drew Brees and the offense, what they're going to do with the offense, whether they're going to have, what quarterback they're going to bring in there and try to shore things up. So sometimes defensive guys can slip through the crack or slip through the door, if that makes sense to you. Number 4, the Detroit Lions, they passed on a quarterback. Yes, they had traded for Los Angeles Rams quarterback, the great Jared Goff, ending the Matthew Stafford era while picking up a pair of future first-round picks. But it's unlikely they believe that Goff is a legitimate long-term solution, Big C. Despite speculation otherwise, Goff can make the Lions just good enough to never be in this range for a quarterback again, potentially, the Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, realistically, when you look at Goff, I mean, he's going to get the Lions minimum of 7 wins a year, maybe as high as 9 this upcoming season, Charlton. So that's going to keep them out of the high draft picks when it comes to quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And they got a couple of great quarterbacks coming out over the next season, Charlton, out of college football. So the Rams, I mean, not the Rams, but the Lions will not be in the hunt for one with Jared Goff at quarterback.
Yeah, they won't be in the hunt, Big C. Number 3, the Panthers. They trade down. They miss on offensive tackle, Big C, after opting out for cornerback J.C. Horn, an 8th overall pick in the first round. The Panthers at least looked like they were in a spot to get one of the draft's best offensive line prospects at number 39 in the second round. When you think about it, Big C, they were, I think, ranked 18th in 2020 their line. Instead, the Panthers traded down twice. They ultimately moved down 20 picks to number 59, taking LSU wide receiver Terence Marshall Jr., Big C. And while the Panthers sat and waited, prospects like Liam Inchberg, Big C, Walker Little, Jackson Cameron, and Samuel Kamazi, as well as Dylan Rasnoff, came off the board, Big C. Your thoughts?
I mean, you just named some guys, Charlton, that can step in and be starters on day one.
Day one.
The Panthers got your buddy who was scuttled out of New York and sent to Carolina kid out of USC. I can't even remember his name.
Sam Darnold. You know you like him.
But, I mean, he couldn't, fend for himself in New York without an offensive line. So how is he going to fend for himself in Carolina without an offensive line now, Jonathan? I question the draft pick there in Carolina.
I told you, they've been hanging out with Bob Baffert, Big C. They sound a lot taller on the radio. It's all fair level war. Number 2, the Washington football team. The Washington Red Tails, if they do everything right. In the first round, the 2 major points about Washington in the first round of this year's draft, they stick out, Big C. 1, the decision to ignore the quarterback position, primarily not moving up to from number 19, especially with Alabama's Mac Jones and Ohio State's Justin Fields falling out of the top 10. I think such a move would have been costly. But now the team is left with a 38-year-old Ryan Swacky Fitzpatrick, who will be suiting up for his 9th different team. Last year, he managed just 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions over 9 games for the Miami Dolphins. How is he the answer, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I see this situation being the same as what you have, in Detroit, Charlton, that you'll win enough games because of your great defense in Washington not to be in a position to draft a quarterback high, Charlton. So you got to look at the long term for this franchise. With this great defense, you're not going to be able to keep it together that many more years, Charlton.
Yeah.
You need a quarterback that can produce now, and Washington may not be in that position.
Well, rumor has it they got a guy that has been warming up by the name of Joe Theismann, and also a quarterback that in Doug Williams that threw 5 touchdown passes in the Super Bowl. As far as I know, it's all fair and level war at Big C. Big C, number 1 on a lot of people might think is not right or not. Maybe it is. But you think about the Panthers, Carolina Panthers. They trade for Sam Darnold, and they had Teddy Bridgewater, who's actually been in playoff games. Sam Darnold has not. That's just my opinion. They always say they want a guy with experience. Sam Darnold probably wasn't the quarterback the Panthers fans had in mind for the game's most important position, so the media says, in the offseason. But the team underwhelmed in striking a trade for the former New York Jets quarterback because mainstream media told them to, Big C. That's why I don't go with mainstream. When you think about it, they went all in on Darnold. Carolina passed on Ohio State's Justin Fields. Even Alabama's Mac Jones at 8th overall, too. And in the end, this sort of feels like a lateral move after demonstrating and demoting Teddy Bridgewater and then trading him to the Denver Broncos that are going to be a much better team this year with Bridgewater. Big C, your thoughts?
I mean, when you think about Carolina, I mean, this is fool's gold between Dave Gettleman with the Giants and Matt Rule down in Carolina, Charlton. It's like who's on first and what's on second.
Yeah.
And neither one of these guys seem to have a clue in the draft.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what people think. Sam Darnold, as much as I liked him at USC, he was surrounded by a lot of talent, but he still was a turnover prone, and he was turnover prone with the Jets. And how they get rid of Teddy Bridgewater, Big C, and bring in Sam Darnold, who's been turnover prone, and they blame everybody else but the guy throwing the ball, Big C. I don't know how they think that's an improvement of their team.
Well, Teddy Bridgewater threw for 3,700 yards last year in Carolina.
Yeah.
I don't think that Sam Darnold has thrown for 3,700 yards in the last 2 seasons in New York. So, I mean, you downgrade the quarterback position, bringing in that kid from USC.
Yeah.
And now you put your hopes on nowhere.
Yeah. To me, that was a bad move. But they listen to your friends in the mainstream, and sometimes that's why I don't listen to the mainstream. It's all fair and love and war. I want to touch on some African-American history, Big C. Who really ran the Underground Railroad? There's a movie coming out about it. Few institutions from the black past have attracted more attention recently from teachers, students, and museums, Big C, as the tourism industry than the Underground Railroad. One of the most vulnerable, when you think about it, in philanthropic innovations in our ancestors' long and dreadful history, Big C, trying to get to freedom, dealing with human bondage. But in the zeal to tell the story of this great institutions, legends and lore have sometimes overwhelmed. When you think about it, the historical facts, not really telling the truth about it, but they're going to be making a movie about it soon. It's amazing how people fought for freedom against all the odds. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, freedom means so much, Charlton. I don't think that black people still today in America have accomplished total freedom when you look at the vitriol and hatred that they still must endure in 2021. But to get out of bondage, Charlton, it was the biggest fight for life, that black people had to go through it. And I think about when you talk about the Underground Railroad, I think about the great Harriet Tubman, Charlton, who did so much to secure so many black people's freedom, Charlton, during slavery. We're talking about a diminutive black woman who stood about 5 feet tall. And she did so many things beyond just the Underground Railroad, Charlton. Not many people realize that she was the first woman to head the command of a battalion during the Civil War, Charlton.
Yeah.
She was a woman, the first military officer to lead a battalion of men.
Yeah. It's amazing. Everybody can think about it. There's books about it. There's a movie come out about it. The railroad itself, according to this legend, was composed of a chain of stations leading from the southern states to Canada. And I know people pay attention to the movie, read about it, whatever you got to do. But when you think about the Underground Railroad, this black woman, the gray hair at top in Big C, did so much to try to just do what people want. The pursuit of justice, happiness, liberty, and justice for all. She made it happen, doing the best she could. We want to say congratulations to whatever horse got robbed at the Kentucky Derby. How's a horse supposed to feel when all they do is run on oats, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they run on oats, a little grain, a little hay, Charlton. But, Bob Bassett is a man of the needle. That's why he hangs out at your place.
Yeah, no, he doesn't, Big C. But I tell you, there's something about the horses. I mean, the horse feels bad. The horse like, how'd I know I was taking drugs? The horse didn't have any clue he was taking drugs. It's all fair and level war. It's not nice when you give drugs to a horse. Hopefully, the UCLA and UCLA women volleyball and men's volleyball, USC, UCLA, they can still remain friends even though the UCLA women win the national volleyball championship, the beach volleyball championship, and also Hawaii over BYU. May they all have success going forward no matter what they do in the years to come. It's all fair and level war. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, rumble, young man, rumble. With all you've got to use, how can you lose? Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm looking forward to us continuing the debate about who's going to be the MVP of the NBA tomorrow, Charlton, and we'll have the reasons for that occurring. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders. Their reasons for caring about people, Charlton, is because they have a heart and compassion.
Yeah, they have a heart and compassion, and they rise and shine. They always rise and shine. You can rise and shine, too, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as my mom always says, there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.